Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how to create and render an animation. So I already have this little cube animation going back and forth. So what I wanted you guys to do, I'm going to show you first, just this little animation of a cube going back and forth. It's 50 frames long. What I wanted you guys to do was to create some sort of simplistic animation like this. Doesn't have to be a cube, doesn't have to follow the exact path that I have it, just something that's a simple animation of an object that's 50 frames long. So once you have your 50 frames, I just like it to change this to 50, so that way this is the only thing that you see, like that. And then what we're going to do after you have your animation, you can go ahead and pause here and go ahead and create your animation and then come back to it once you have it. But once you come back, you'll be creating some lights for it. So you're going to have to include at least 2 lights. So how you create some lights is you go up here to create lights, and then I'm going to do a directional light. So the directional light will shine a light in whatever direction that the arrows are pointing, and no matter how big you scale it, it'll have the same effect. The only thing that'll change it is the intensity here. So I'm going to change this intensity to like maybe 0.6 or something like that. And we can test that by going into this render view. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, make sure you have a plane, either a rectangle or a plane underneath the object that you're animating, so that way you can see there's like shadows underneath. Make sure that it's not just the I have the grid turned off, but make sure it's not just the grid. You have a plane underneath as well. Once you have that, you can go up here to this little eye with the little clapper board here, and you can click that, and then it renders out the image when you click this button right here. So you can see there's a little bit of shadow underneath because the cube is above the plane. But if you go to, let's say, frame 24, you can render that one out, and that's where it is on that specific frame. So this does it one frame at a time, but it just kind of shows you a preview of what your animation is going to look like in that moment. So if we go to frame 1 over here, we hit render, that's what it's going to look like. So we can minimize this for now. We're going to go and add another light. Let's see, create lights. Let's do area light. So let's create an area light and point it down. Bigger. We can see. We can change this intensity to like 4 or something, and we can see how this looks. Doesn't really do too much. Area lights aren't very strong. Let's see. Exposure, that's what we're looking for. Do exposure. Exposure like 5, see how that works. Okay, that kind of looks better. So if you're in the attribute editor and then you go under the Arnold button, which is what the render engine is called, and you go to exposure, you can up the exposure so that way your light is actually being able to be seen. So we can minimize out of here, and after you have your 2 lights and you have your plane and you have your animation, then you are ready to change your render settings up here, which will be this little clapper board with the little gear. If you hover over it, it'll say render settings. So then you click on that, and what you're going to be doing, you can change this from a 3 to a 2, so that way it doesn't take as much detail to create the images. And then you can go over here from, I think it'll default you in common. You can go over here to Arnold Renderer, and that's how you change that. You can go back to common here, and with the file name prefix. So essentially what this is going to do is render out each individual frame as an image, and then we're going to take those images into Premiere and put those as an image sequence and create an animation from there. Kind of weird that you can't really do that as one in Maya, but this is what we got. So the file name prefix will be the beginning of the image. So we can just say this is scene. And you can have that be at the beginning of every single photo, whatever you want to call it. We can change this from EXR to JPEG. Quality should be 100. Color space is fine. This is important. Frame animation extension. You want to change this to name number dot extension, and then you want to change the end frame from 10 to 50, so that way you get your full animation. And then it's going to be from the perspective camera. This is right here, perspective camera. And then change HD 540 to HD 1080. And then hit close. And then what you're going to do is go from the modeling tab up here to the rendering tab, so that way you can access the render button, and then you can go to render sequence and then hit the options box next to it. The current camera is perspective, that is correct. And then what you want to do is create a folder in your documents or your desktop. So you can go ahead and minimize out of here and go create a folder on your either desktop or your documents folder. I've already created one in my documents, so you hit this little folder to get to there. Then I go to documents, to Maya, this render folder right here, and then this is basically telling Maya where to put the images. So it's inside this little render folder here. So then I just hit select, and then I hit render sequence. And then it'll go individually, one at a time. You can kind of see it running through. And then once it has all 50, then you'll be able to take those into Premiere and then save them as an image sequence, and you'll have a fully rendered out animation that will look super nice with all the different shadows and lighting and all that kind of stuff to make it look professional. But just kind of waiting for the animation to finish. But once it does, then that'll be the end of the video, pretty much, because that is all that I'll have you do for this part of the video. I'll have another separate video on how to turn the images into the sequence in Premiere, so that'll be a second part. But should be finishing up here in a second. Should be all done. Okay. So then once you have those, you can go ahead and check. So let's see, folders. This is the render, documents, Maya, render, and they're all in here. 1 all the way through 50. And that'll do it for this part of the video. I'll see you guys in part 2.